People who don't stick to the plan are babies. Any modifications are for babies. I did not follow the baby steps to the T. Not at all. There was a lot of things I had to modify in the baby steps to make them work for me. And I was also part of a few communities like Facebook groups and social media groups of people who were like-minded, followed Dave Ramsey's baby steps, and we were all, working to become debt-free. And I realized that a lot of people like myself did not follow his plan exactly the way it's written. We called ourselves Dave-ish, where you use the baby steps as a guideline, but most of us were modifying it slightly to make it fit our long-term goals, as well as what we were comfortable with doing at the end of the day. Certain things about the baby steps, which largely, in my opinion, are a bit outdated. They came out in 1992 and they seriously need an update. Now, the first baby step 1, which is getting a $1,000 emergency fund. In my honest opinion, the $1,000 emergency fund was not enough. And the thing is that I was proven right. I was in debt for 5 years before I became completely debt-free. I had emergencies that came up along the way, and those emergencies were very expensive, well over the $1,000. One that stands out in particular was a serious maintenance repair that I needed to do on my car that cost well over $2,000. If I just had that $1,000 emergency fund, then I would have had to gone into debt in order to pay off that bill. So me personally, I was comfortable with having $2,000 to $3,000 set aside for emergencies only. So like when my car, without me expecting, needed a repair. The baby steps came out in 1992. That starter baby emergency fund of $1,000, if you adjusted that just for inflation from 1992 until now, you would have had to bump it up to just about $2,000. It might be worth having a little bit more than that, maybe $2,500 or $3,000. Multiple times I needed well over $1,000 to cover an emergency expense. However, to correct for my own bias, let's be real here. Baby step 1, the $1,000 emergency fund, is a good starting place, at the very least for the vast majority of people. The studies are out and it shows that 2/3 of Americans do not even have an emergency fund to begin with. The average person, if there were to be a $400 or $500 emergency, they would have to go into debt to cover that emergency. So honestly, the $1,000 starter emergency fund is the right move for most people. However, especially for those who are going to be in debt for a longer or extended period of time before they become debt-free, I think it's smarter to bump up the emergency fund to not just $1,000 to maybe a month's worth of expenses. Now, baby step 2, paying off your debt, smallest to largest. Now, honestly, I'm a big nerd. I'm constantly learning. The logical clear step would be to pay off your debt, the highest interest first, to the lowest interest, because over the course of your debt payoff, you'll end up spending less money because you'll attack the highest interest debt first. However, Dave Ramsey does not suggest this. He suggests paying off the smallest loan first. And even though this seems illogical, I, for one, think this is the right move for most people, because when I first started off, I had over $200,000 of debt. The largest loan I had was well over $20,000. And I think my month-to-month cash flow, the money that I had to start throwing at my debt, was maybe $1,000 or $2,000. So imagine how long it would have took me to knock out that first loan. It would have took months and months. So using the debt snowball method allowed me to knock out the first few loans, like I think the first 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 loans in the first month. And that was so exciting for me. I was able to pay off my debt quickly, or at least those first few loans. I felt like I was making progress. And even though I had this huge mountain of debt, I could see clearly how I was knocking out one loan after the other, and it made me feel good. And that goodness, that feeling that I had was addicting, and it made me stay committed to knocking out the next loan and the next loan and the next. However, once you've knocked out those few first debts, you've got those few first wins, you feel good about it, you're committed to paying off your debt, it may be in your best interest to start attacking some higher interest debts earlier. So like maybe a credit card, maybe a larger loan that does have a higher interest payment. And something that I did personally, I had a car payment with a loan that was somewhere in the middle of my list, but I decided to pay it off early because if I paid off that car loan early, it was $300 a month of monthly payments that would have disappeared, and that would have went straight into my cash flow, which I could use to pay off other loans much faster. So I decided to pay off my car a little bit early in my debt snowball. And I found that many people do the same. They find certain loans that they want to pay off quicker, and that helps them stay motivated. So there's nothing wrong with paying them out of order. But Dave's recommendation would always be just pay it off, smallest to largest, stick to it. People who don't stick to the plan are babies. Any modifications are for babies. And bruh, people got to do what works for them. If it keeps you motivated and it keeps you going, and heck, I paid off all of my $250,000 of debt, and I didn't do it perfectly the way he had laid out, and I still made it. Does that make my debt-free journey any less valid? No. Now, the next part of that is, Dave has this thing like beans and rice, rice and beans. I know if you've listened to him, you've heard that 100 times. Live on nothing. You better not see the inside of a restaurant unless you're working there. And bro, I get the mindset of being as frugal as possible because that's what I had to do. I had to cut back way back on my lifestyle in order to achieve that goal of becoming debt-free. However, I strongly believe something that they don't talk about enough, you do have to keep something in that maybe isn't frugal, but makes you feel good and it keeps you committed long enough to complete your journey. Now, for me, that was going out with my buddies every weekend or two and having a nice meal, even though it wasn't cheap. And I enjoyed that time. I enjoyed that laughter. I enjoyed that, the amazing time that I had with my friends, that quality time. I wouldn't have traded that for anything. And knowing that I had that to look forward to every single weekend really kept me going when I had a really hard time cutting back on my lifestyle, saying no to everything. Knowing that I had that at the end of the week to look forward to, it kept me going. And I think everybody has to have that, whether that's hanging out with your friends once a week or going out to dinner, or maybe you buy yourself something a little nice. Maybe it's not, the most expensive thing in the world because we don't want to put off our goals too long. Something that maybe costs you a little bit of money, but keeps you committed long enough for the long haul. Because I think consistency and showing up every day to attack your journey is more important than the intensity, like how hard you're going, because it's easy to burn out when you're going too hard. Now, the last gripe that I had with baby step 2, which is the biggest step that most of people come to Dave Ramsey for, is the fact that he says to stop all investments, particularly retirement investing, while you're in baby step 2. Now, for me, not doing any investing while I was getting out of baby step 2 helped me to stay laser focused on getting out of debt. I threw every dollar that I had at getting out of debt, and I needed to do that because I was in so much debt. A lot of it was very high interest, and I needed to focus on it. However, I did miss out on a significant amount of gains in that time, especially because I was on a longer debt-free journey. And if I had just put in 1, 2, 3% of my income towards my retirement and took advantage of some employer matches, which is 100% return on your money, when your employer offers a 401k and will match you dollar for dollar up to maybe a certain percentage of your income or a certain dollar amount, that's free money that I gave up. And not only that, that was huge amounts of growth, especially in the last few years in the stock market, that I missed out on. And I'm mad about that. There's nothing I can do about it now. I can just invest aggressively, which I can do now, but that's growth I could have missed out on. And I wish they would have at least put that in the clause and say, stop all investing. But if there's a free match at your job, you should take it. It's just strict, 7 baby steps. It can't change. It's a monolithic guide. And if you deviate from that, then, you're a baby and you can't stick to plans. I think that you should hold off on aggressively investing. However, if your employer has a match, you to at least put up to your match. Maybe that's 2%, 3%, and get that free money from your job. And then all the rest of your money, make sure you use to aggressively pay off your debt. Now, baby step 3, baby step 3 was incredible. This is just after I finished paying off my debt. I'm working on building a 3 to 6 month emergency fund. Bruh, I felt like I was balling. I was debt free. I was still living super frugally, and that money was racking up month after month after month. I loved having this huge emergency fund. I love having that security of knowing that if I were to lose my job, if I wanted to leave my job, if some emergency happened, I was way more than covered on any emergency that could have come my way. However, after some time, even though this is gonna sound weird, but after some time, I became increasingly uncomfortable with having all this money sitting in my account, which sounds weird, right? I had this money sitting in my account that I felt that I could be making more gains on if I had invested some of it. Now, I did some research and listened to what other people said other than Dave Ramsey, and it made a lot of sense. You know, if you have a portion of your emergency fund invested in something more stable, like an index fund, or something that can be easily converted back into cash if an emergency does arise, why not keep it there? Because you can make some gains on your money, especially because emergencies don't come along very often. Why not have a portion of your emergency fund invested so that it'll grow instead of sitting in your account where money is subject to inflation and the power of that dollar goes down every year by about 2 to 3%. So why not have some of it invested? And that's what I started to do. I started to invest a portion of that emergency fund in assets that are easily accessible so that if an emergency comes, I can convert it back into cash. However, I've seen appreciable gains and profit from these investments already. So I'm kind of glad I don't have the whole 6 months ready in cash. Some people love having a big emergency fund. They love having that big moat around them that keeps them protected. And some people feel more comfortable investing a portion of it or even all of it. For me, having a portion of it invested making me feel better, and I'm seeing the great returns on that. But Dave Ramsey's stance on that is that it's supposed to cost you a lot of money. You're not supposed to make money because the emergency fund is a insurance. So now we're at baby step 4. Now, baby step 4 is where you begin to invest 15% of your income into your retirement accounts so that you'll have a nice big nest egg for retirement so you don't have to worry about working or doing anything else. Now, I think this is a great starting point because most people don't invest enough into their retirement and most people don't invest at all into their retirement. And guess what? All of us are going to get old, and the government assistance or Social Security is probably not going to be that sufficient in order to take care of us. Because let's be real, even when I'm old, I'm still trying to be a baller, okay? I'm gonna be that guy who's on the highway driving 50 miles per hour in my brand new Corvette, even though I can barely turn the steering wheel or even, shift the gears. But I see myself as that old man, even though I've probably been getting mad at them my entire life since I've been driving. I get it, guys. I get being the old man in the fast car. Why not ball out? However, this is where I see a lot of people begin to really deviate from Dave Ramsey's plan. A lot of people highly disagree with Dave Ramsey's retirement recommendations. He often pushes actively managed mutual funds and using investors and financial advisors through his SmartVestor program. Now, I think for the average person who's not versed on investments, who don't know anything, they're not educated about it, it is wise to get a financial advisor who can help you make those decisions early on. However, there is another option other than mutual funds called index funds. Now, index funds are not actively managed, meaning that there's no manager or group of people who are managing the funds, but rather they're passively managed. The index fund has consistently shown a return, I think somewhere between 8 to 10% over the course of the history of the stock market. However, Dave Ramsey is highly against this because, the index fund is not managed. You don't need a middleman to get it. It has extremely low fees and you have pretty consistent returns on your money. But he often pushes people to get a professional to invest mutual funds, even if you're well versed, even if you're well educated about it, even if you have some knowings of what you're doing. Now, you have to ask yourself, why does he push people in this direction? Well, it might be because his company has the SmartVestor referral program. Financial advisors enroll into his SmartVestor program and he gets a referral of $400 to $900, I think, a month to divert some of his audience towards these approved financial advisors so that they can help them take control of their retirement accounts and start investing and, working towards that big nest egg for their retirement. Now, is that bad that he provides a service to help people find a financial advisor? Not at all. It helps the person out who doesn't know anything. It helps the financial advisor out who wants to make a living helping people grow their retirement account. And it helps him because he gets a nice commission every month from these people. However, to deny the validity of being able to buy these index funds on your own at very low costs and low entry point doesn't make sense. Why you're so adamant to push people towards, using a middleman who costs more money, which is more expensive, but honestly is okay if you need that. Why not at least acknowledge the existence of these index funds that are low cost, have great returns, and you don't need a middleman, especially if you're very well versed and you feel comfortable finding your own investments. Maybe because they generate maybe $500,000 to $1 million a month on the Smart Investor program. And maybe he's financially incentivized to push people in that direction. It's hard to admit that people might not need your referral program if it's making a lot of money for you and your company. Well, it's my way or it's the highway because it's my freaking company. Now in baby step 6, which is paying off your home early, a lot of people don't agree with this either. And a lot of people are really on board with this. I was really excited about the idea of paying off my home early. However, a lot of people, which is starting to include myself, thinks maybe you'd get a better return investing that money elsewhere besides your home. The argument is that you'll get better returns on your money investing it in the stock market or in other assets rather than paying off your home early. Now let's compare the trade-off between paying off that home early and putting most of your money into investments. And let's just use a regular S&P 500 index fund as comparison. Now, Dave claims that the average person following his plan will pay off their house in 7 to 10 years. Now, if I do the math quickly, the average mortgage in America is roughly $1,200 to $1,300 a month. Now, $1,200 to $1,300 a month times 12 months times 7 years comes out to roughly about $100,000. If I took that same $100,000 and invested it into the S&P 500, so if I got a 10% return every year on the S&P 500 index fund, I would expect to get back $1.8 million over the course of 30 years, which is generally how long people invest for before retirement. Now, paid off home early in that 7 years or having $1.8 million investments by the time you retire. That's a big miss. That's a big miss to not have that $1.8 million and have the paid off home early rather than paying it off later, but investing most of it into your retirement. Now, this all comes down to the person. What is going to be better for you? So I'm not going to say either one is necessarily right or wrong. It really just depends on what it is that you want to do with your money long term, what your end goal is, and what position do you want to be in with your finances when you're getting older. Now, the last step is baby step 7, which is about building wealth and giving to others. Now, baby step 7 is all about wealth accumulation and being very generous with your money. So in Dave's plan, you're building from a place of being debt-free, owning your home outright, and from there you can use this excess cash flow that you have to invest aggressively into becoming financially independent or your retirement and giving a large portion away towards charitable organizations, to other people, so maybe your church, however you want to give to, but to make sure to give. Now, I don't think that anybody has a problem with this. I don't think anybody has a problem with focusing on growing your wealth and becoming more financially independent as well as becoming charitable. I know that my issue with this is that I want to focus on baby step 7 earlier. Now, I may be in a slightly different position than some people. I'm not married, I don't have kids, so I can focus a little bit more on my asset or wealth accumulation earlier than maybe someone else who might want to purchase a home, for their family earlier on than maybe I am in my own, journey with my finances. And I don't think there's really a wrong answer. My primary goal is not to be the average everyday millionaire. My primary goal is becoming financially independent and being as wealthy as possible in a lifestyle that is sustainable for me. That is my primary goal. And I think I have an effective plan to do it. And I know that I've learned from many others other than Dave Ramsey, like Robert Kiyosaki, Big Pockets podcast. I highly recommend you guys watch that. It's a great podcast about real estate investing. I've read, Millionaire Next Door. I've read I Will Make You Rich by Ramit Sethi. A lot of these books are in the description. Links, there's a list of books there that I highly recommend that you guys read. I've learned from all those people, and I've taken pieces of each of these wise people who've all lived a long life and who've all found success. And I found those pieces that worked for me to build the life that I want to have in the long term. And I think that's all it really comes down to. What is it that you want to have long term? What does that life look like? What does that lifestyle look like? Now, those are some of the things that I found that I wanted to change about the baby steps, or that I had to change to make it work for me. And I found that many others have done as well. So thanks guys for watching. My name is Ludwig. Again, if you want to continue to see videos like this or other helpful financial videos, subscribe, hit the like button, and comment. It helps me out whether you leave a positive comment or not. It all helps, like, dislike, leave the positive comment, leave a negative comment, whatever. But I appreciate you watching this long. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.